Hey everybody, Eric Mashinsky here. I'm going to put this story I wanted to do on my Phenom Life rarely followed YouTube. I'm going to post it there and maybe send it to a few of you that I think may enjoy it. Certainly my Christian brethren, because we are in a very interesting time. And I was reading a fresh story about the prophet Elijah back in the Old Testament. This is going to come out of 1 Kings chapter 18. And I thought it was funny, fascinating, and emboldening as a minority in terms of what we see with how many people follow uh, the deception, the darkness, Baal, if you will, are trapped in Babylon, that don't want to be bothered with the truth or are just flat out blinded, deceived. And the hope that there is that a lot are going to be converted to the Lord in these days. And I think this is sort of analogous to it. It's analogous to where I'm at personally, I think, with my faith, as I was sharing this with a guy that I work with. He's not a Christian. He hasn't really read the Bible, but he seems to be very interested when I tell the stories of the word and, bring it into the times. But this was, I don't even know when this was, the contest on Mount Carmel. I'm going to read to you just a story. I think you'll like it if you haven't heard it. I hadn't read this in a long time, and my Bible opened up to it randomly, which wasn't randomly, on the floor the other day. And so I picked it up, and I'm using the New Living Translation, so it's kind of easy to read. I like this version. Um, NIV's fine. King James can be the most accurate, especially if you're using a concordance like the Strongs to really dig into the meaning of the Hebrew and the Greek words. But let's keep this as simple as possible. Okay, we're looking at this time, the third year of the drought. The Lord said to Elijah, "Go and present yourself to King Ahab. Tell him I will send rain soon." So Elijah went. Now we're going to cut to the chase here. His friend Obadiah, who was a Christian or followed the Lord at that time, he essentially said, "Is it really you, Elijah?" Because Elijah had been incognito. He said, "Yes, it is. Go tell your master," because he had basically worked for King Ahab, that I'm here. And look at this. I mean, this is just a prelim, but what have I done to you that you're sending me to my death? He's basically saying, the king has searched every nation and kingdom on earth from end to end to find you. And each time he was told Elijah isn't here, God hid him from the king. And Elijah is an amazing character who, frankly, Elijah and Enoch are the only two people besides Jesus Christ that were taken from the earth without dying in the flesh. So God obviously really loved Elijah, and Elijah had a personality. He had balls of steel, and he had a lot of faith. But if you read about his story, it's also, he's a human. And he, at one point, after doing miraculous things on behalf of the Lord, and we're going to read about it, against all odds, and having a huge impact in the world at his time, was depressed and suicidal and ready to throw in the towel, until God came and brought an angel of the Lord and fed him to strengthen his body when he was hiding after a lot of this stuff had happened. Everybody wanted to kill him. But so here he is. Um, this is when he gets in front of Ahab. Elijah promises Obadiah that he's going to go see him. He's not going to believe and let him get murdered. So then Elijah had come. Obadiah let the king know. When Ahab saw him, he exclaimed, "So is it really you, you troublemaker of Israel? I have made no trouble for Israel. You and your family are the troublemakers, for you have refused to obey the commands of the Lord and have worshiped the images of Baal instead." Baal was a false god, a lower god, still alive to this day in a different form. We see him worshipped at the Grammys, at the Super Bowl halftime show. all over the world, by many. Another form of, one of Satan's minions, if you will. Now summon all Israel to join me at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who are supported by Jezebel. She was the queen. Okay. So he's basically saying, bring the big guys, the prophets of Baal and the prophets of Asherah, the other god of the day, and tell everybody to come. Just tell them all to come. So Ahab did it. The king summoned all the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. Then Elijah stood in front of them and said, how much longer will you waver? So here's the boldness, just something to think about. I mean, I've gotten to the point in my life where in the last few years, I can speak very directly, and I'm not afraid. In my younger years, I was more, I would call it chill, relaxed, laid back. Now, when it comes to the business of the Lord our God and the times that we're in, I will say, I don't care about anything. I will do what Elijah did here, but Elijah is an inspiration because in his day, look what he was up against and look at what he said to Ahab in the beginning. You're the troublemaker. This is the king who could have him killed right after that. Elijah said to them, so then Elijah stood in front of them. They're all at Mount Carmel. How much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. But the people were completely silent. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only prophet of the Lord who is left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Now bring 2 bulls. The prophets of Baal may choose whichever one they wish, cut it into pieces, and lay it on the wood of the altar, but without setting fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood on the altar, but not set fire to it. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. Pretty reasonable, right? I'd say that would do it. Then Elijah said, and by the way, don't be afraid to call fire down from heaven at this time. I actually am looking forward to some opportunities to do just that. It's about that time. And I don't underestimate what God's ready to do through us at this time, because this is also going to be a period where we can get discouraged. We're going to be outnumbered greatly, just like Elijah was. But he will empower us and then use his exploits to bring and convert many millions to himself. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, you go first, for there are many of you. Choose one of the bulls, prepare it, call it on the name of your God, but do not set fire to the wood. So they prepared one of the bulls, placed it on the altar. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, shouting, oh, Baal, answer us. But there was no reply of any kind. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar they had made. They're doing their chanting, up, 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 up. About noontime, this is actually hilarious to me. I was laughing out loud for like 2 minutes. I don't remember this, but then about noontime, Elijah began mocking them. Now, mind you, he's the only one on one side. You got 450, the prophets of Baal on the other. He's got the other 400 prophets that are under the god of the queen. And he starts talking shit. You'll have to shout a little louder, he scoffed, for surely he is a god. Perhaps he's daydreaming, or maybe he's taking a piss. Maybe he's away on a trip or asleep and you need to wake him up. He was just talking smack. And that is hilarious to me. And he was not afraid to do so. So they shouted louder, and following their normal custom, they cut themselves with knives and swords until the blood gushed out. Now you have to be careful whenever any voice or spirit or anything calls on you to cut yourself. This is a traditional thing that Satan does, and you just don't need to do that to follow or worship God, and God does not tell us to cut ourselves for His will. It is the evil one. They shouted louder. Blood was gushing out. They raved all afternoon. I mean, they were getting after it, screaming, shouting. Probably pulled out the gongs and had the music going, and the drums were beating until the time of the evening sacrifice. But still, there was no sound, no reply, no response. Nothing happened. Then Elijah called to the people, "Come over here." And they all crowded around him as he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one to represent each of the tribes of Israel, and he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. Then he dug a trench around the altar large enough to hold about of water. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, and laid the pieces on the wood. Then he said, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour the water over the offering and the wood." So he's saying, like, make it very difficult for something that's wood to catch fire because it's soaked in water. After they had done this, he said, "Do the same thing again." When they're finished, he said, "Now do it a third time." So 3 times he's drenching the water, or drenching the offering, the bull, and the wood with water. They did as he said, and the water ran around the altar and even filled the trench. At the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me so that these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself." Immediately, the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground and cried out, "The Lord, He is God. Yes, the Lord is God." Then Elijah commanded, "Seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let a single one escape." So the people seized them all, and Elijah took them down to the Kishon Valley and killed them there. A little bit of ruthlessness there, but the opportunity came to see that, and the only ones that he went after were the ones that were left that did not turn to God. They weren't really interested at all in following the one true God. They were interested in power and anything that they could get, out of life that Baal would provide them, being a prophet of Baal, which is a bunch of temporal crap. But, a lot of people don't really want to do God's will. They want their own will done. And this is what would have happened to him if now he lost that battle and it was the other way around. They would have murdered him on the spot. But I thought it was pretty interesting, that there's one guy against the whole populations there of Israel watching, or most of them. He's outnumbered by 449 people. Okay, just think of that number. All these prophets that were going after this, this prayer, if you will, this ceremony to get their God to start something on fire. And immediately after, Elijah just prayed and asked. But when it says the fire flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, I'm guessing it was lightning. I mean, who knows? Who cares? We, by the way, just saw a lightning bolt strike the Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil a couple of days ago, which is pretty crazy. And the images there are amazing. And we're in a time when we're dealing with, I'm going to just go over one more thing. We're dealing with UFOs and balloons and all this stuff that are getting set up for this alien invasion. We're getting that narrative going right now. But anyway, to finish it up with Elijah, Elijah was no joke, but his faith, and faith, frankly, I have many flaws, but my faith is not one of them. In fact, it's one of my biggest assets, and it's been a gift. I see everything turning out, everything that I talk about in the word, the warnings or whatever, it may seem serious. And sometimes it is for this period of time, but all of the outcomes revolve around the gospel, which means the good news. Everything I see is positive. But I don't ever get stuck in a place where it looks like it's just too tough, or there's too much to rise above, because I've seen God uh, do many, many wonders and miracles and blessings in my sight, and I do not doubt that He is coming back very soon. Now, I want to talk about this really briefly about what's going to happen and what is happening with all this stuff that we're seeing in the news right now, being prepared for. All right. So now we have, now this is Revelation. Okay. These are the end times, and this is the last little phase of time on earth. You know, we've been going through a trajectory here. And what I'm essentially going to go through is just one event. And this was when John the prophet, John the apostle, was taken to the end in the spirit, and an angel was showing him these things, some things to write, some things not to write. It was for his own, gift and edification. But he was talking about what he was seeing. And a lot of this is just like, a lot of these things that are mentioned and the word of God itself is a mystery for a reason. Not everybody is supposed to understand it by looking at it at face value. Most give up. But I can tell you that my understanding of end times events, like, going through the book of Revelation, has really heightened in the last few years since I started picking the book back up. I would say the last couple of years, since COVID, after COVID, and watching what's happening in the world, I'm starting to see more and more things that, start to fall into place. But, you witnessed in heaven another significant event, large red dragon, 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns on his head. Is this literal? Is this figurative? I don't think it's literal, but I don't know what it is. People talk about it as governments, or whatever, whatever it is. His tail swept away 1/3 of the stars in the sky, threw them to the earth. Now, but let's just get down to it. And there's a lot of talk in the book of Revelation about 1,260 days, which would be 3.5 years, like the last, 3.5 years of time that we're going to be in this evil, dark, wicked, upside down world. Now, so this next, Revelation 12:7, we hear people that talk about Satan, a lot of pastors, preachers. I've heard every one of the denominational theories about this, going to Isaiah, Satan falling as lightning from heaven. People talk about that as a past tense situation. Well, it's not. It's a now situation. And here's what we're going to be dealing with. We may already be dealing with it, but I think actually we're probably going to really be dealing with it when they reveal they reveal these UFOs that are starting to really come up everywhere, and they will introduce us to these extraterrestrial, if you will, alien creatures that are now here and for the good of society and everything else, which is all bullshit and deception. But this is worth reading. This is a reality situation. This isn't a parable. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. Okay, so it's important to note, Michael is an archangel. An archangel is a high-ranking angel and certainly powerful, but not even, I believe I've looked at 2 different rankings of archangels. And so I've looked at 2 recently, and one of them had them at number 2, and one of them was like number 6 in terms of their authority, their power, and their place in the kingdom under God. So I find it very interesting that the Lord God, Jesus Christ, other higher ranking angels, they didn't even have to leave their spot or their seat to go fight Satan and his minions. And what did they do? And the dragon lost the battle, and he and his angels were forced out of heaven. This great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, the one deceiving the whole world. Imagine that. There's someone deceiving the whole world. That's his job. That's what he does. And he gets the whole world. So, just because everybody believes something doesn't mean it's true. And in fact, it could be very dangerous. He was thrown down to the earth with all of his angels. So he gets chucked out of heaven. And it's basically just, the point there is like, if we think that this good and evil battle, like it's still like we don't know who's going to win because they're equal, it's not the case. God's already got it all done, under control, talked about the story here, so long ago. It was written and spoken about how this was all going to play out, because God is doing this for some reasons, and I don't claim to know the reasons. I know that my God is a merciful, grace-giving, loving God. And, I would, I guess, liken it, even though I'm not a parent, to like those of you that have kids, when you like chasten or, discipline your children, sometimes in it, you see them cry or they're hurt or, they're going through suffering or whatnot. And it hurts you even more than it hurts them, but you're doing it for their own good, and that, and it's because you love them. And I believe that's what's happening here with this entire clusterfuck that we're going through, where black is white, white is black, truth is false, false is true, up is down, down is up. We're in a really dark time, and it makes you wonder, like, if God's in control, like, why is this being allowed? Well, it's peaking, and it's all going to change very, very soon. But what we should know is, after Satan gets booted, right now he's probably Michael's got him by the collar with one hand and putting him right over the edge and about to push him off down here. And then I heard a loud voice shouting across the heavens, "It is come at last, salvation and power in the kingdom of our God and the authority of Christ." So it's here. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been thrown down to earth. The accuser of our brothers and sisters, that's what he does. The one who accuses them before our God day and night. He talks shit to God every day about me and what I do that is not right, or that is, oh, that's your boy, that's your guy. Look at what he did last night. Look at this. Look at, his decision. Ha ha ha! You call that your child, your son? What a joke. That's what he does. So do you want to follow someone like that? He's our enemy. Screw him. And essentially, it reminds me of Job, the story of Job. For those of you who haven't read that or heard that, Job was one of God's like loving kids. And the Old Testament, he was so blessed. He was wealthy as can be, unbelievable, life, kids, wife, everything, health. And all of a sudden the devil trots up like, look, Job, he doesn't really care about you. You have a hedge around him. And so this is what's interesting too, is that God can have a hedge around us, and it totally protects us. So he's like, I can't get through the hedge. If you took the hedge out, and I could actually do things and tempt him, he would deny you in a minute. God says, okay, I'll take it away. You can do whatever you want, but you can't kill him. So basically says, Job is righteous and I trust Job. And he let this happen to Job for many reasons, probably, but for our own good, for this story. Some people don't think the book of Job was true, but I don't know. I have no reason to believe that it's not. And I just found it very interesting. If you think of it in that narrative, it's just very, very interesting. And Job went through a lot of suffering, but he never abandoned his faith in God. And at the end of that story, after suffering a lot, tremendously, more than I could probably, or anybody here could probably imagine, losing everything, and getting sick as can be. I was just there on the verge of death, things like that. But God brought him all the way back and more, restored him. His life became even bigger than before and better because he was faithful and he was tested and tried and was able to tell Satan, screw off. So this is it, and I'll wrap up. And for the one who accuses them before our God day and night, and they have defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony. And because they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. Do you love your life here in this world so much? You don't want to lose your job. So you don't get you will definitely take whatever they tell you to take. You will follow whatever you've got to follow. You don't want to, lose your little fiefdom with your family and your perks and your 401ks and whatever else it is, or if you're wealthy or whatever. If you're that scared to die, that's a risk that I would actually recommend you take a second look at, because they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. My life, I put it up against anybody's. It's been an unbelievable life, and I'm very, very blessed. And I just don't care. Like, I'm ready to go to the next level. I'm ready for it all to go. None of it's going to go with us, right? We know that, whether it's a natural decaying down of the flesh whenever we're old, or it's an accident, or it's God himself coming back to the earth and us changing our bodies and living forever or whatnot. I just this really resonates with me. And I see that this is why this was highlighted. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in heavens, rejoice, be glad. But terror will come on the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you in great anger, knowing that he has little time. When the dragon realized he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued. So I'm not going to get into all that, but he's pissed. When he gets tossed out, he knows it's like just moments, call it the 1,260 days maximum, 3.5 years. I think that time, when you look at the scriptures, has actually been shortened to 5 months. I don't try to keep track. I just am prepared for anything, and trying to look to my God daily for strength. And, if you don't know him, I would just ask, maybe try it. Something that I've recommended to a couple people that I know has produced results. This is what I would do. If you just don't know, but you're intrigued, and more things start to happen, whether it's fear or intrigue or whatever that drives you, it doesn't matter. Well, you probably should know if there's somebody who created us, right, and is there, and frankly, that will hear your prayer and answer a prayer. But Jesus told us so many times, we have not because we ask not. Ask and you will receive. Knock, the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. You have not because we ask not. So what would I do? And we don't even know if Jesus is the thing. What is God? Who is God? Oh, I believe in God. Well, Jesus is the only one that matters, frankly. And the only one that I trust out of any other God or gods. He's the one who I can call upon and always trust. And he has all the authority in heaven and earth. And he's God. And so I would just say, try it for 2 weeks. Just give it 2 weeks or 10 days, 2 weeks, 10 days. Get on your knees. Ideally, you do it once in the morning and once before bed, but you could get away with it just once in your morning. And get on your knees as a sign of humility. And all praying is talking to God, lifting your heart towards heaven, just talking that to lifting your heart up and basically talking to God. And what I would simply do is I would say, Lord God, Jesus Christ, if you are real, I'm here. I'm open. I'm all yours. But I need to see that you're here, who you are. Please reveal yourself to me. Reveal yourself to me if you are the truth, the way, and the life, and my Lord. reveal yourself and show yourself. I'm watching, I'm listening, and I'm all yours if I can see that you are the way, the truth, and life. Something to that effect. Guess what will happen? I don't know. You tell me after it starts popping off, okay? Hope you enjoyed.